Pierre Victurnien Vergniaud, May 31, 1753, October 31, 1793, was a French lawyer and statesman, a figure of the French Revolution. A deputy to the Assembly from Bordeaux, Vergniaud was an eloquent orator. He was a supporter of Jacques Pierre Brissot and the Girondist faction. Early life and education. Vergniaud was born in the city of Limoges in the province of Limousin, to the elder Pierre Vergniaud and his wife Catherine Bobiat. The Vergnauds had both come from well-to-do merchant families with a long history in the province, and the family enjoyed a comfortable prosperity. At the time of Vergniaud's birth, his father was a contractor and purveyor for the king, supplying food for the royal garrison in the city. The younger Vergniaud was first tutored at home by a Jesuit scholar, Abbé Roby, a master of ancient languages. It is likely that Vergniaud's lifelong love of the classics was inspired by him. The boy was sent to the Jesuit college at Limoges where he excelled. The future French statesman Turgot was at that time the intendant of the province, and knew the elder Vergniaud well. On one occasion, young Pierre recited some of his own poetry in the presence of Turgot, who was greatly impressed by his talent. Through Turgot's patronage, Vergniaud was admitted to the Collège du Plessis at Paris. Little is known of Vergniaud's personal life during his time at du Plessis, but his education there was clearly a major formative experience. His deep, personal absorption of classical history and philosophy is evident throughout his later life. After his studies were complete, Vergniaud went unsure of his direction in life. He drifted lazily through several of years, dabbling in fiction and theater, and losing his short career as a clerk in the provincial revenue office. Much to his father's dismay, his chief preoccupation became frequenting salons and engaging in conversation, but in these pursuits Vergniaud excelled magnificently. Important new friendships and associations grew richly for him in the salons. He was particularly favored by the Countess de Mailly, who let the frequently destitute Vergniaud live freely in her estate, and Charles Dupaty, President of the Parliament of Bordeaux, who urged him to study law. Attorney at law, Vergniaud's sister Marie had married a wealthy porcelain maker from Limoges named A.M. Louad, and it was this brother-in-law who gave fortifying encouragement and critical financial support to the aspiring law student. With his help, and the powerful guidance of Dupaty, Vergniaud was accepted by the bar and went straight into practice in April 1782. He did not take long to make his mark in the field. His first few cases were successful enough, but before the end of his first year in practice he was handed the case of Marie Brigade, a local woman accused of promiscuity and a consequent infanticide. This sordid and sensational affair held the city in thrall, and Vergniaud was given the difficult assignment of proving her innocence. At the trial's end, the young woman was absolved of all charges, and her false accuser was imprisoned instead. With this shockingly complete victory, Vergniaud was widely recognized as a rising star. Turgot's affair, years of successful advocacy followed, and Vergniaud's eloquence was frequently met with loud bursts of applause in the courtroom. In 1790 he took on the defense of Pierre Turgot, a National Guardsman of Brive who had been imprisoned and sentenced to death for having incited a riot. The Turgot affair arose from the boisterous celebrations of revolutionary peasants in the small village near Brive called Olassac. Incensed members of the local aristocracy had attempted to quell the indecorum by firing shots in the air. Met with rocks and stones, they turned their guns on the crowd and killed several peasants. When Turgot's unit arrived to restore order, the soldier found himself repelled by his duty, and according to the charges he urged the rioters to fight back. Turgot was not alone. Many guardsmen were arrested and 2 were swiftly condemned to death. While Turgot languished in jail awaiting his turn, the news spread and sparked the furious interest of revolutionaries all around the nation. Vergniaud had already been greatly moved by revolutionary rhetoric, and was an enthusiastic supporter of the reforms which had caused the initial celebrations at Alençon. As Turgot's lawyer, Vergniaud entered his first truly political case. The trial began in February 1791 before a packed courtroom. Vergniaud's case was built on the fact that his client had not actually committed any offense. Could he be hanged, Vergniaud asked, just for something he said in a moment of righteous anger? He reminded the court of similarly imprudent remarks that had recently been made in the National Assembly itself, one of its members. Speaking of those to whom the people owe their liberty, one must fall upon these people saber in hand. Have you asked for a scaffold to be raised for him? With rising drama, he repeated the question 4 times to the hushed courtroom. In a long and incandescent speech, he widened his defense of Turgot to include the whole of the peasant crowd. They trod in indignation the soil which they so long had watered with their sweat and tears. Their eyes turned with the somber disquiet of resentment to the superb chateau where they had so often gone to lower themselves by shameful homage, and from which, more than once, the caprices of pride had spread like devastating torrents. Vergniaud's oration put the entire revolution on trial, and, like Turgot's, it was exonerated completely. Revolutionaries printed copies of his defense and circulated them throughout France. Vergniaud had delivered one of the great speeches of his life, and now the provincial lawyer would be coaxed from all quarters to join the revolution at the national level.